Grace stepped inside the flat ahead of me, and I closed the door behind us before reaching for her coat. I took it from her without asking, as I always did, my hands on her shoulders as I drew it back. My fingers brushed the nape of her neck in the movement, and I found myself lingering there. I had no wish for the distance between us to remain as it was, not after the evening we'd already made of it, but I had no clear understanding of what had gone wrong. So I finished pulling away her coat and stepped back. "I think I shall go to bed," she said, and turned from me, and I let her go. I watched the line of her as she moved away, the sway beneath her dress drawing the eye despite myself, and knew she would not be returning, whether I had the will for it or not. I should have followed her, but I couldn't move. I'd made a thorough mess of our time here already, and I knew it, but how it was to be made right now, I couldn't yet see. As she disappeared into the dark of the hall, Cyril caught my sleeve and pulled at it, allowing no refusal. "Come on," he said. "I have a bottle open." I followed him into his study, lined with books and stacked high with papers he had not yet troubled himself to put in order, the curtains drawn against the street. He went straight to the sideboard, helping himself to the whiskey without pause, only breaking long enough in the pour to say, "That was a rather tense affair earlier." I removed my coat and laid it across the back of the chair before taking the glass, watching him a moment over the rim as he took the chair beside me. Obviously, I hadn't handled the evening as I ought to have. I didn't believe myself wrong in my anger, but I cursed the fact that I'd allowed it to be seen at all, that I'd been so far moved as to let the facade slip, even for a moment. It didn't sit well with me how my love for Grace could drive me to that edge. "I regret that I allowed my disagreement with Grace to intrude upon your evening," I said. He took a slow drink before setting his glass down, a disbelieving sort of laugh leaving him at the same time. "Disagreement," he laughed. "That is a generous way of putting it." I said nothing to that, but he had no sense of what had been required of me these past weeks, nor the strain of it, nor the fact that everything now rested in my hands in a way it never had before. But even as I thought it, I found it tasted sour. I had what I'd set out to claim, and more besides, and it didn't speak well of me to begrudge the difficulty of it now. "You gave her no choice but to dance with Henrik," he went on, not unkindly, but with enough certainty to make it plain he meant to be heard. "And now you take issue with her for meeting it as anyone would. That is hardly her failing." I knew well enough he was not mistaken in it, though I had no intention of granting him the satisfaction of saying so. So I let out a low breath and made a dismissive motion of my hand, more to close the matter than argue it. "It is not even about that man," I said. "We were already at odds before we set out tonight." A momentary burst of laughter left him as he nodded. "Oh, I noticed," he said, "and I should think everyone else did as well." I finished the glass in one go and set it down harder than I meant to, pushing it back with my hand. "So what is it, Christian? You may as well unburden yourself for once." I had no habit of seeking counsel, nor any inclination towards it, and would have sooner managed most matters alone than admit to needing it. But this was not a matter I'd been prepared to meet, and sitting opposite me was a man who'd never lacked for success where women were concerned. "Last night," I said, "we came very near to consummating our relationship, and it did not go well." He leaned forward, a faint crease forming at his brow as he tried to make sense of it. "How does a thing like that go awry? I must know." I shifted in the chair, working the stiffness from my neck as I leaned back, the whiskey taking some of the edge off a conversation I would not otherwise have entertained. "I saw to her needs," I said after a moment, the phrasing deliberate for lack of a more discreet way to explain it. And when it was done, she made some attempt to return the attention, but I stopped her. As you can see, she did not take it well. A groan left him, and I understood at once that what I had taken for restraint had been received in a different light. I hadn't meant it as a slight. Quite the opposite, and yet it seemed neither of them understood it so. "Oh, no wonder. he said, with no attempt to soften it. Good God, man, why would you do such a thing? I drew myself up a little at that, lifting a finger as I answered, the words coming quicker than I might have preferred. I do not require reciprocation, I said. I saw to her because it is my place to see to her in that way, and I would not have her think she must answer it in kind. He looked at me in a way that brought to mind a man bracing for a slow, inevitable disaster. Christian, she was not attempting to do you a favor. She wanted you to show her how much you loved and wanted her, and you rejected her instead. Shaking his head, as if he could not fathom my point of view at all, he reached for the bottle. I understand you think what you did was quite chivalrous, but you have only succeeded in breaking her heart. I hope you understand that now. I sat with it as he poured the drink, the night before coming back to me in clearer order than I cared for, the look she had given me and the sound of her cries as I left her to it. What I had dismissed as temper showed itself for something else now, and I found I had little excuse for not having seen it sooner. I'd hurt her, and there was no sense in dressing it otherwise, and tonight had not improved the matter. Pressing her into the dance, under the pretense of something else, must have read as a wish to be rid of her altogether. Of course, I didn't mean it that way, but intention did little to mend the thing once done. Did it? He pushed the glass back towards me, and there was something in his voice suggesting he had quite lost patience with me. "And for God's sake," he said, "why haven't you slept with her yet? What exactly are you waiting for?" He set the glass back before me, and I took it up again, though I had little taste for it now. I didn't care for it any more than she would, how matters must be ordered so, but I wouldn't see her denied what ought to have been hers. If anything were to be put right, it should be done properly. Marriage, of course. That is how it is supposed to be done, is it not? A short, incredulous laugh left him as he shook his head at his glass, one leg crossing over the other. And when, exactly, will that be? Because unless I have missed something, you have not asked her, nor have you seen fit to give her any indication of when you might. His attention returned to me, his eyebrow shifting slightly. That is a dangerous way to go on, I should think, particularly when you are at the same time sending her off to the arms of a man like Henrik. My hand went to my pocket, the whole of it so plainly beyond question in my mind that I couldn't account for how it had come to be doubted at all. I drew out the small box and set it down between us with enough force to make the point. "I have every intention of asking her to marry me," I said. "When the time is right. I am simply waiting for the moment to present itself." He brought the box towards him with a finger before lifting the lid with his thumb, his attention settling there just long enough to take it in. "You should have asked her the moment you found her," he said. "Then again the night she remembered your life together, and once more when we came back to England." The lid was set back in place, and the box returned between us. I found I had not been unaware that there had been any number of moments in which the question might have been put and done with. I'd considered them all, and at least 100 more besides, but I had no wish for the proposal to seem the result of expectation, nor something carried out because it was due. It should be better than that. It must be something set apart that she would not see coming. And yet, the more I turned it over, the less certain I became that I wasn't only making a very unromantic task of it for both of us. "You have had more than enough opportunity," he went on, "and I expect she has begun to wonder why you have taken none of them." I took the ring back and returned it to my pocket with a harsh breath, knowing well enough how my hesitation had done more harm than any misstep I had tried to avoid. "In your opinion, how do I remedy this with Grace, then? I have no wish to spend the rest of our time in London quarrelling, nor carrying it back to my house." He took a drink and shrugged, as though the matter were far simpler than I had made of it. "You go to her right now," he said. "You leave off the argument and whatever pride you have tied up in it, and you tell her you love her. Nothing more complicated than that. You hold her, and you let it be enough." A flick of his hand sent me off before I could say more, impatience plain in the gesture. "Go on," he said. "The girl is likely beside herself by now. She cannot be asleep with it all turning over in her mind. Go to her." For whatever reason, it was enough to reach me. The drink and Cyril's brutal honesty had done their work, not to dull the matter, but to strip it down to what could no longer be ignored. I'd wounded the only person whose opinion held any real claim upon me, and in so doing had made a mockery of the very thing I'd sworn to be. None of it rested cleanly with me. There was still the prince to account for, and the spectacle of it, and the fact that it had been played out before her, which I didn't care to examine too closely, nor did I find I was entirely free of irritation that she seemed to enjoy it as she had. But none of that altered what had come of it. I took my coat from the back of the chair and went out without another word. "Good luck to you, mate," Cyril called after me as I reached the hall. And though I'd never been much inclined towards faith in anything beyond my own hand, I found I held to those words all the same, in the hope they might make the way back to her a little less uncertain.